Hello guys, thank you very much for joining in. Today I'm going to be running you with a short video on how to start your preparation for your FRM level 2 exam that is going to come in your May 2022. Okay, and I am Ganesh Nayak. I help finance professionals and students to excel in their career and become a better version of themselves through a lot of trainings and development and mentoring. And I also help FRM and CFA students to clear their exam in the first attempt. So what is the agenda for today's entire discussion? First, I'll give you a brief about what all books or topics are there in your level 2. Okay, how should you start your preparation? That means which book and which material you should rely on for your FRM level 2 exam. Further, I'll give you an overview for each book with a list of important chapters from that book. And further, the timeline, that means when should you start, which month, which book you should prefer, and what should be the order of preparation. Okay, few quick tips on how to solve the question bank and when to start the solving of the question bank, which month you should ideally start solving. Okay, and then certain quick tips on how to behave with the content with respect to the FRM level 2, how is it different than your FRM level 1, and final preparation content tips, okay, that will help you to leverage and enhance your preparation for your FRM level 2 exam. So let us start with the brief introduction for level 2. So what is the different in terms of the level 2 exam? Primarily in your level 1 exam you had 4 books and you had 60 chapters, and so from that 60 chapters you were expected to come solve around 100 questions in the examination. Okay, the exam was computer based exam, but now for your FRM level 2 what they have done is they've increased the number of books. Okay, the number of books are around 6, and the total chapters they want to cover in this 6 book is around 100. Okay, so the total chapter is 100. Okay, and the bifurcation of the weightage is given in the on the slide, and you can see that around these 3 books, which is the market, credit and operation, these 3 books combine takes around 60% of the question. Okay, now how many questions are going to come? So there will be like 80 question, okay, coming from 100 chapters. Now by looking at this thing itself, you would realize that the institute would ideally try to club 2 or 3 chapters together and would try to ask you a content or a question which is giving you a flavor of 2 or 3 books. Okay, so the question difficulty level will be slightly up as compared to FRM level 1, because they have to check the ability of the student in small number of questions. Okay, so there is 80 multiple choice question. It's a CBT exam that's going to be there, and there is no negative marking for the exam, and the 60% of the content is coming from the first 3 books, which is market, credit and operation, and the rest, next important set of the book is investment management and liquidity risk, and then you have the current issues. Now this current issues, every year the content will change. Now I have a set of chapters which I've created as per 2021 for the current issues part, but next year the content will definitely change, so you will have to take that into consideration when you're looking at current issues. So we generally expect out of around 7 to 8 chapters, 3-4 chapters will change on an average for this current issues book. If they want to make it a bigger change, they will ideally change the entire content. Okay, now let us go towards the books and the material, preparation material that can help you to prepare for the exam. Okay, so obviously the content, the way you were preparing for your FRM level 1, in which you were only relying on the Swagger book, okay, that might not be possible over here, because if for level 2, first of all, the content is slightly heavy, that would need a detailed understanding of what is happening in terms of the risk. Okay, that is one part. Second, in many chapters, the Swagger book, the Kaplan Swagger book is not sufficient. That means the way they have written you, they have given you the content, it is not sufficient. Okay, there are a lot of diagrams, there are a lot of charts which is not available in your GARP book. So for certain chapters, you will have to go and read the GARP Institute material. So out of 100 chapter, you can expect around 30 chapter reading should ideally be done Swagger plus GARP. Okay, and those are very important chapters which can either make or break the exam. Okay, then for the question bank, ideally you can have a third party question bank provider who has a set of question bank providing, plus you should also solve the BT question. So you guys can go to our website and purchase the Fintelligents question bank, but there are many question bank providers which can help you to enhance your understanding related to the question bank, okay, related to the content. But once you've gone through the content or the basic level question bank, then you can go towards BT, because BT is slightly heavy in terms of the content, in terms of the language, in terms of the topics which is tested. If you directly go, you might not be able to pick it up in a lot of cases. So you need a hybrid model where you're solving a particular question bank and then going towards the binding turtle BD question bank. Okay, so that is with respect to the books and the preparation that you should be solving. And what you should be doing is you should bifurcate your preparation in two parts. First, only reading and reading. The reason being, once you read, you have gone through the entire 100 chapters. That means you should be in a position to understand what exactly is there in each book, and for each book, which chapters you feel difficult or which chapters you are comfortable with. That understanding is needed first, and then you should revise the entire content and then solve the question bank. Because when you're going to read the entire 100 chapters, you will obviously forget the chapters which you started initially. So that would lead to a lot of confusion, a lot of frustration for you. So ideally, if you keep the question bank at a later stage, by doing that question bank, you will do one revision by default. That is what I tell students to follow. Okay, I'll talk about this more when we do the timeline. Okay, overview of each book. So what I've done is I've given you the overview of the entire book. Okay, so let us talk first about the market risk management book. Now this is the first book of the chapter, and the book is bifurcated primarily into three big sections. The first section is the term structure of the interest rate. There are around 4 chapters which gives you the base about how the interest rate term structure, the yield curve, is created, what are the factors which plays into it, and what are different models related to it. Okay, so the first 2 chapters of that term structure is very, very important, and which is over here. Okay, there is one more chapter which has certain models, the Yuli model, which is important for the exam. Okay, let us go towards VAR related chapters. So if you look at the book and if you pick up the first 4-5 chapters, they're primarily focused on VAR. Okay, and they are telling you it's a basically continuation of your level 1. For in level 1 in your book 4, which is valuation and risk model, you had the first 3 chapters related to the basics of VAR. But over here, what they're going to be doing is they will take that basic and they will take you towards the next level in terms of how the bank is looking at the VAR and how, from the regulatory perspective, the VAR is being calculated. So there are 2 important chapters from this bucket, which is backtesting of VAR and VAR mapping, which is going to be very, very critical for your exam from this book. Okay, then you have certain chapters which are slightly related to volatility, correlation, and all of that. Okay, so for the volatility related chapter, there is one specific chapter which is volatility smiles, which is very, very important for your exam. Okay, now why? Because this is continuation of the Black-Scholes model chapter that you did for your FRM level 1. Okay, now in this entire book, okay, there is one chapter which is this fundamental review of the trading book. This is primarily a continuation of the Basel regulation, and which is there in your operation risk book. So you should ideally pick this up with operations risk book. Okay, so there is 20% weightage for the exam, so ideally 16 question out of 80 is expected from this book. Okay, let us go towards the next book, which is a credit risk management book. This book is heavy in terms of the number of chapters, okay, and the bucketing that is happening in the chapter. So there are certain chapters which are related to counterparty risk, so they are more focused over here in terms of how the OTC trade is structured in and how the credit risk of that OTC trade is taken care with respect to the terms and conditions which are there in the contract. Okay, like they're primarily focusing on CVA, they're primarily focusing on the contracts, CSA annexures, okay, how the collateral is managed, how the margin is managed. So that is being explicitly given in that chapter. So if you look at that bucket, there are 3 chapters, which is collateral, future value and exposure, and CVA. And out of it, CVA is very, very important for your exam, because in the past exams we have seen formula driven questions coming from this exam also. Okay, so counterparty and credit exposure related bucket is a very, very big bucket from your credit risk management. Then you have securitization and structured credit risk. Now there are 5 chapters, around 5 chapters, which focus explicitly on the securitization. So in level 1, they give you an introduction about mortgage and mortgage backed securities. Now they have taken you to the next level with respect to going in detail about securitization, what are the problems in securitization, how the waterfall structure actually works, and how the individual tranche is facing the risk. That is also covered in detail. Okay, so if you pick up that book, that bucket, there are 2 chapters: introduction to securitization, understanding securitization, and structured risk. These 3 chapters are important, especially the structured credit risk and the understanding securitization. In the past exam, we have seen questions coming from this chapter. Okay, there are around 3 to 4 chapters which are explicitly focusing on the model. Okay, there is rating assignment, then there is a spread risk chapter. Okay, then there is credit risk and credit derivative chapter. So these chapters are focusing on primarily when you want to analyze the credit risk of any company, or how a credit rating agency analyzes the credit risk, what all models they're using it. So that is basically covered in those chapters. And if you pick up that bucket, okay, you will realize that the spread risk and the capital structure in bank, these are also falling in that bucket. Okay, this book will also contribute 20% of the weightage, so that means around 16 questions are being asked from that book. Okay, this book is very important for your exam. Okay, heavy chapters, big number of chapters, and concept driven chapters are there. Okay, let me take you towards the third book, which is your operations risk management book. This book is heavy theory driven. Okay, high number of chapters, around 25 chapters from that book, but it is more of theory. Okay, there are important buckets in that chapter. For example, there is a series of 3, 4, 5 chapters which are explicitly focusing on the Basel related requirements. Okay, and those Basel related requirement chapters are given over here, and these 2 are very important for your exam. You can expect a theory question for your preparation. Okay, now there is one more bucket which is there in your book, which is primarily related to risk culture and risk data and risk identification. So this bucket these buckets are created of individual or group of standalone chapters which are explaining you how the operation risk of the bank is dependent upon the culture of the bank, or how the data is managed within the company. So you can look at these chapters. Okay, management of risk associated with money laundering, then banking conduct and culture. Then there is risk culture chapter, then there is principles of data aggregation. So all of these chapters, these are all standalone chapters. These are easy chapters, so do not worry about it. And also for the third bucket, which is risk resilience and related chapter, what does this chapter focuses on is that if there is an operation risk incident within your bank, how will you react to it? Okay, so that has also been covered in that book. So from the exam perspective, 20% weightage, 16 question, heavy theory driven book. You will have to read this book twice or thrice, 2 to 3 times easily, because you will not remember when you read it for the first time, because of the sheer size of the book. Okay, let me take you towards the next question, next book, primarily your liquidity risk management book. Okay, now this book was primarily added in 2021, wherein they included a lot of, sorry, this book has been primarily added in your 2020 content. Okay, and this book was added from the perspective that banks after the crisis were not when the crisis happened, they realized the importance of liquidity, and hence they wanted to add a new book specific to liquidity, because previously it was connected with the operation risk in that particular book. When they added this book, there were more 20 chapters that they added directly. Okay, when you look at this book, okay, the weightage is 15%. 12 questions are expected on an average from this book, but majority of the book is theory. Okay, you will have to read this book at least twice, 2 times. Okay, and it is more understanding driven theory. The difference between this book and the operation risk book is that operation risk book you will not even remember anything, but over here this is some content is understanding driven, hence you would be able to remember a lot of part of this book itself. Maintaining and monitoring liquidity is very important part of this entire book. And if you look at this bunch, there is this part and this. I've got this 4-5 chapters which are related to maintaining and monitoring. So what they're talking about is how exactly the bank is calculating the liquidity, and how they're making sure that the liquidity is maintained throughout the crisis period or normal period. That has basically been talked about. There are certain standalone chapters, out of which there is one which is liquidity and leverage, which is related to liquidity, but it is not connected heavily to any of the other chapters. There is no order, there is no structure related to it. Okay, so that is also there. And these chapters, illiquid asset related chapter, these are all standalone chapters, and these chapters are easy but slightly bigger in size. Okay, you will have to read this book properly, and because it's a heavy theory driven content and also understanding driven content. Okay, let me take you towards the next book, which is investment management and risk management book. Okay, now this book has a base which is capital asset pricing model, which is from your modern portfolio theory from your FRM level 1. Now when we look at this book, the first few chapters are focusing on how exactly factors affect asset, and then it affects the return of that asset and the risk of that asset. So first three chapters are primarily focusing on, they're talking more about factors. So they're talking about factors, then they're talking about alpha, then they take you towards the portfolio. Okay, so we have talked about a factor and asset, then they're talking about, okay, how do we create a portfolio? So they're talking about portfolio creation, the risk of the portfolio, how do you manage the risk of the portfolio. That has basically been covered in these two chapters. Obviously there are more chapters related to, but I have highlighted the important chapters on the slide. And finally, once you've seen the portfolio part, they are taking you towards the fund. So if you're a hedge fund, or if you're a private equity fund, primarily hedge fund, which has a lot of portfolios being created within the company, then how do you manage the performance and the risk of individual portfolio? Okay, so from that perspective, you have one or two, three chapters related to that, which gives you an overall view of the fund with respect to investment management. Okay, now if you look at this book, okay, it has a weightage of 15%, around 12 questions. This book is calculation driven. There are a lot of chapters where you will find calculation, and it is very logical. That means it's this book is entirely in a flow. Okay, you don't have to change anything. You can start from the first chapter and directly end till the last, and it's a very interesting related content chapter. Okay, next book, which is current issues. Now if you're going for May 2022 exam, then obviously some of the content would change from this book primarily, but like always, the aim of this book is to help you understand what are new things that are happening in the financial market and how it is going to impact your risk management domain. So that is being covered. So if you look at 2021 curriculum, they have more content related to fraud and financial risk. Okay, they are talking about how financial crime has increased in during the 2019 COVID cases. Then how frauds are particularly being tracked in the market, that is being also covered. Then there is cyber risk and climate risk. Now climate risk was explicitly added in the curriculum, because now going forward also I see a lot of chapters which will be related to climate risk. To a certain extent, cyber risk will be a part of the flavor of the current issues, but climate will improve. The number of chapters will improve. So cyber risk and climate related risk, there are chapters involved into it. Then there is machine learning and artificial intelligence. Now this chapter has not been changed for 2-3 years now. So primarily I expect it to remain, because that's what the banking system, the banking sector is primarily now doing in the future. So they would want the students to know more about it. There is one standalone chapter which is related to LIBOR, because LIBOR is now going to be switched to SOFR. So they have given you an introduction. I don't think so in 2022 this chapter will be there. Okay, there will be a change in the content. Again, 10% weightage, very low weightage in terms of the book. Around 8 questions you can expect in the exam out of 18. So this was just a flavor of the different books that you have for your FRM level 2. Let me take you towards the timeline of the preparation. How should you start? So today we are standing in September. So I've identified 3 important deadlines for you which you should track if you're going for the May 2022 exam. The first deadline is obviously the early bird deadline. Now my intention is very clear. Make sure that before that deadline, before you make that fees payment to the institute, okay, you have gone through the entire 100 chapters once, and you have seen the content. You know what all things they are trying to assess. So that should be your first target. Okay, that should be your first target. And the second target, okay, primarily which, so within that first target, primarily you end of December or the 31st of January, that is where you should focus on making sure that the content is covered. And by the end of December at least, okay, even if you're delayed in your preparation, please make sure that you have gone through three books properly. Okay, 3 books properly. Now, if where the second important deadline is basically end of March, the second target that you should keep is that by the end of March, you have gone through the important chapters. They have revised, you have gone to the entire book 100 again, and you have solved the question bank. So solving is very important, which should be completed by March if you're going for the May exam. Okay, and let me give you some broader timelines. If we are starting the preparation from 1st of October, this is primarily for students who have gone for the May exam and cleared the exam, and for people who have going to go for the July 2021 exam and going to appear for the exam. Okay, and they will clear the exam and they will go for level 2. So how should they start their preparation? So the first month, okay, which is the October month, okay, what they can ideally do is they can pick up the investment management book, because this is very much connected to your level 1. Okay, you can pick up this book and start this book entirely in a proper manner. Okay, and side by side you can pick up the operation risk, because this book, because it is slightly theoretical, so you will not feel that pressure of reading. Okay, so that you should keep in mind. You can try to complete these two books in that month. From your November month, entire November month, you can focus on credit risk, very important book. Okay, heavy book. Okay, along with that you can start reading your liquidity risk. This is also theoretical driven. Okay, if you're not able to complete this, then ideally you can cover it, you can switch it with the current issue book, and you can complete current issues and then move the liquidity risk to the next month. That is also possible, but try to combine it with one very important book and with the theory driven book. Then from the December till January, okay, before you make that payment, you should ideally be able to complete your market risk entire book. This is also important from the exam perspective, and reading of the current issues book. This, so till the 1st of January, ideally you should be able to complete the reading. If you still have a buffer of 15 days before you make that payment, you should be able to go through the content and complete the one reading of it. Okay, once you've completed the reading, you should start the revision of the book. Okay, and when you start a revision, please make sure that you solve these two important books first. Okay, the investment management and the market risk book, and then go towards solving the credit risk book, and then, okay, within the time frame. So primarily from 1st January till the 1st of Feb, you can focus on the two books, which is investment management and the market risk book, and then from 1st of Feb you can focus on credit risk book, which is slightly heavy, and start solving ops risk along with it, because ops risk revision you will have to keep on doing again. So there is this book you'll have to read twice or thrice. Okay, from 1st of January to 1st of March to 1st of April, you will solve the other two remaining book. This month should not be that much heavy for you in terms of your preparation. Okay, now from 1st of April, that is where the real struggle or real strategic win battle is going to start, because that is where you have to do, ideally you should do one more revision. Okay, and this time you should go back to your question bank also. You should look at the question bank, how you're preparing, what all mistakes you did, and revise those questions again, and look at the question bank in a very detailed manner when you're revising the content. Okay, so when we look at the 1st of April to 15th of April, try to do very fast revision of these two books, and then primarily the 15th of April to 1st of May. Okay, and obviously if you're having a sectional test, then you can pick up the sectional test also and start solving that sectional test in a very detailed manner. Okay, revision of liquidity and operation risk should be done daily from 1st of April till your exam date. Ideally you should spread out these two books. Every day you will read one chapter or some of the content from this book. So that is what is important for the exam. Now from 1st of May, assuming that your exam date is slightly late, then you can start solving the mock papers and sample paper and enhance your preparation for the exam. So that from that period onward, you should only focus on the solving of the question bank. Okay, that solving of the mock papers, that means entire 80 question in one go. Okay, I hope this timeline will help you for your preparation. Now if you are solving the question bank, that means from January onwards, when you are solving the question bank, how should you go about solving the question bank? So ideally, whenever you are solving, please mark the question bank. That means you should know which question that you solved you did not understood itself, so you are giving a separate marking to it. Okay, there might be certain questions which you felt were very different and unique, so you will come back to this question again to relook at it when you're doing the revision also. Okay, question bank that you were able to solve but took a lot of time, this is where you can score. So you should make sure that those type of question bank, the next time when you revise or when you solve, you should be able to solve that question bank fast. and obviously there will be certain questions which you are able to solve in the first go. There was no problem in that. The main reason why you're doing this analysis is that to identify the questions which took a lot of time and questions which are very different, so that if those kind of question comes to your exam, then you're well prepared. Okay, and the question bank which you could not understand, you should go and revise the content given in your book again once in a detailed manner. Okay, some tips for your preparation. So for your FRM level 2, ideally there are 100 chapters, which is slightly higher than your level 1 content. So you'll have to be very strategic in terms of which chapter to pick up and which chapter to do later. Okay, because time is going to be very important factor in your preparation methodology itself. It's majority of the content is theory based, so primarily you will have to read a lot of content again and again, especially the operation risk and the liquidity risk. There are 6 books and each book is focused more on the individual kind of risk, that is market risk, credit risk, operation risk. Okay, for the exam, when you sit for the exam, the 4 hours will not be a constraint for you. The major problem would be understanding of the question and answering it. So it was not the exam is not calculation intensive, the level 2 exam, as calculation intensive you will see the level 1. So it is more and more theory, the actual exam, and they will combine 2-3 chapters, 2-3 books together to give you a question. So the more clarity you have in terms of the content, the better you will be able to do a calculated guess in a lot of the questions in your exam. So mixed question is a very important feature of your FRM level 2 exam. Okay, summary, I'll for students who are going for the exam, few quick view that they should follow: at least 250 to 300 hours of reading, and which involves reading the content twice. So liquidity and operation risk will have to do more than 2 times for the exam. Focus on the market and credit risk very heavily, because those are the very important books for your exam, and try to complete one reading of the book before 31st of January. Then only you will be in a very good position for your May 2022 exam. Okay, proper mock is necessary for the exam. Make sure that you solve at least 5 mock papers for your level 2 exam. Okay, and obviously out of which is going to be the carb sample paper. Okay, make yourself ready for the theory driven big questions in your exam, and make sure that you have a proper time before the exam, because reading 100 chapter in one go will be very difficult if you do not have proper leaves before the exam date. Okay, so this is where I will close down the video, but for few people who want to understand what we do, we basically provide students with opportunities to read and clear the exam for CF and FRM in first attempt. Okay, so we provide live online sessions also, and we also provide video lecture packages for your FRM level 1 and level 2. In case you want to go on your own and prepare using our test series, so there is also a test series package which is available for your content for both level 1 and level 2. And if you are preparing for the exam and you need any assistance in terms of the free material that we can help you out, please send us a WhatsApp on this number. We will send you the details. Further, if you need a free plan, the free study plan for your both FRM level 1 or level 2 exam, we can pass on that to you. You can reach out to us on our WhatsApp number. Okay, and there's a Telegram channel that we have created where we keep on sharing the important updates, important notification related to exam, which you can join and become a part of the community. Okay, so I hope everybody is able to get a fair idea of how to prepare for the FRM level 2 exam, and this video is helpful for you. In case you want me to do any particular video on one particular content, and you can put it on the comment section. Okay, and we'll try to create a video as soon as possible. In case you need any assistance in terms of your preparation, you can reach out to us on this WhatsApp number, and I will try to give you a call back as soon as possible. Okay, thank you very much, and do subscribe to our YouTube channel. That will help you to keep updated about the FRM exam details as we move ahead towards the exam time. Okay, thank you very much guys, thank you very much for joining in.